Well, I'm going to start out our day. We finished up with our looking at the good news of the gospel. We're claiming good news, and we're starting in the book of Ecclesiastes. But I want to start off with a little bit of American literature here. And John Steinbeck from East of Eden. This is in chapter 34. He starts off with this in part 4 of the book. He says, "A child may ask, 'What is the world's story about?' And a grown man or woman may wonder, 'What way will the world go? How does it end? And while we're at it, what's the story about?' I believe that there is one story in the world, and only one, that has frightened and inspired us so that we live in a pearl-white serial of continuing thought and wonder. Humans are caught in their lives, in their thoughts, in their hungers and ambitions, in their avarice and cruelty, and in their kindness and generosity too, in a net of good and evil. I think there is only this is the only story we have, and that it occurs on all levels of feeling and intelligence. Virtue and vice were warp and woof of our first consciousness, and they will be the fabric of our last. And this despite any changes we may impose on field and river and mountain, on economy and manners. There is no other story. A man, after he has brushed off the dust and chips of his life, will have left only the hard, clean questions. Was it good or was it evil? Have I done well or ill? A life well lived, a life of meaning and fullness. What does that consist of? If we're fortunate enough to live a long life and we die in our beds, right? What would make it feel like it was worth it? What is the purpose of humanity? What determines a good life from an evil one? And does it matter? We've all had these questions. Humanity has since its inception, and the pursuit is to answer these questions well. We're going to take a few weeks here going through a book and to look at what I believe to be a book of the Bible that is drastically needed for our time. And honestly, for all times, as you'll see in the irony of this book. In a postmodern, post-truth world where we make up and we live out our own truths, right? In an effort to find meaning and purpose, I think the book of Ecclesiastes comes in to remind us of the futility of finding our meaning in anything on this earth save for one thing. I have 2 boys. Many of you know I have 2 boys. Stedman is 7 and Pax is 4. And I think one of the joys of watching them grow up is I love seeing their imagination that they have. Right now, for Stedman, the big thing with him is that he's learning to play the piano by ear and watching him listen to things and starting to figure that out. Dustin, one day, I think he'll be coming to you. And I love it. He's very creative with his Legos. He loves to build things, make things new. He'll destroy what was there and he'll make something new. And to see the joy in that. For Pax, it's learning the lyrics to the entire Jesus is King album by Kanye West and rapping it in the back seat of the van. It's actually the cutest thing. I love it. Hearing him rap out Kanye. But many a young child's life of growing up in their world is to play pretend, right? We as adults have unfortunately lost a lot of that creativity. We put it away as though it doesn't matter, right? Playing pretend is a wonderful thing growing up, but learning the differences between the pretend world and a real world can be a very confusing process, can it not? As a kid grows up, they learn the harsh truths of reality that they can't just go in and buy whatever they want and just with no money, right? Not everybody recovers in the hospital or the doctor. Everybody got sick. Superheroes don't always save the day, do they? But as we grow up, we cannot continue living in the pretend world. Yet, this is how many people try to live their lives, pretending that this or that will get them through. And I think Ecclesiastes is a gift from God to help us live in the real world. It gets deep down to help us explode our make-believe games that we love to play and help us to realize that everything is not as clean and as tidy as the let's pretend world likes to suggest that it is. And I think that's what the beauty of this book is going to show us as we walk through it together. So if you would, turn with me to the book of Ecclesiastes at the end of our wisdom literature. And it starts off, I love the words, the book begins with a famous phrase that many of us know it. If we know it from the King James, we've heard it right. The idea of the vanity of vanities, but I love it. It says here, futile, futile, laments the teacher. Absolutely futile. Everything, if the horse isn't beaten dead enough, is futile. If you want to get a reader to wake up to something and stop pretending what life is like, I think it's a pretty good way to start off, is it not? To get their attention. But to begin this way begs the questions, what do we mean by futile? What do we mean by, some versions say, vanity? And I think many well-intentioned versions of the Bible, some say that they like to use the word, I think they like to use the word meaningless. And I do believe that actually that is an improper view of what this word in Hebrew means. That is, the writer is not saying that all things are meaningless. Kind of like the freshman that comes home, right, that's a new philosophy major and comes home and says that, Dad, everything, we're just stardust. Nothing has any meaning, right? That's not what he's getting at here. Life is not pointless, like some like to say. We're not, as Neil deGrasse Tyson says, just stardust floating through. That's not what he's about here. Because there's going to be times that he'll say, it is better this than this. There can't be something better or something worse if there is no meaning, right? But the word here comes from the idea, the futility, comes from the Hebrew word, I have it up here, is hevel. Hevel. Say hevel. See, it's up there. I even put it in English too. Hevel. And what it means, it simply means, in its simplest form, is a breath or a vapor. Everything in life is nothing more, he's saying, than a brief vapor. Here and gone. And it's a common biblical idea. Actually, I'll turn to a couple places for you just in the Psalms that actually use this word. Look with me in Psalm 39 when it says about, it uses this word in other places. And I think it's important to understand this because this is going to build the foundation for everything that's going to come from this. Psalm 39, verses 5 and 6, and then 11, he says, look, you made my days short-lived, and my lifespan is nothing from your perspective. Surely all people, even those who seem secure, are nothing but a hevel, a vapor. Surely people go throughout life as mere ghosts. Surely they accumulate hevel, or worthless wealth, without knowing who will eventually haul it away. Look at verse 11. You severely discipline people for their sins. Like a moth, you slowly devour their strength, and surely all people are a mere, what? Vapor, hevel. Psalm 144 goes on a little bit further to say what this word gives us in life. Psalm 144, verses 3 and 4. The author says this, he says, O Yahweh, of what importance is the human race that you should notice them? Of what importance is mankind that you should be concerned about them? People are like hevel, a vapor. Their days like a shadow that disappears. It's actually the same word, the same root word used of the very the first set of kids that came from Adam and Eve. You had Cain and you had Abel, right? Hevel. It's the same word. His name means what? Breath or vapor. And in the story of Genesis 4, what do we see about this character, Abel? He's what? He's there, and he's just gone, right? There's not much to it. It's a here and it's gone thing. He's gone quickly. And what the author does in the very first words is to throw cold water onto a pretend world where we think this world is the ultimate of what there is. He's saying that life is nothing more than the thinnest of vapors. It's kind of like when you boil water on the stove, what happens? You see the vapors rise, and the thinnest of them, they do what? They're there, and they're gone. Immediately gone. Here, and gone. You can watch it. You can try to grab it. You can try to protect it. But it will disappear like that. Thus, it is futile. It's fleeting. It's vanity. Life is hevel. Now, I want to kind of describe something. I'm going to stop for just a second. I want to take a step back. I'm going to put this up here because, actually, it's funny. Somebody asked me this morning, like, who's writing this, by the way, Christopher? And I think, and this is going to matter in the long run, and I think there's an interesting thing in the writing of this book, and I think it'll help you to understand as we go through, now, there are different views on who wrote Ecclesiastes. There are different views on how this is all put together and everything like that. But this is how the best in my studies that I've found this, that verses 1 through 11 in chapter 1, and then down at the very end, chapter 12, verses 8 through 14, are what I like to call a frame narrator. Basically, they're a bookended person that's going to come along after verses 1:12 all the way to 12:7 are written. I believe personally that those words are likely written, as it says, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Who would we assume, being a wise person, son of David, king in Jerusalem, that this might be? The most common thought is this is Solomon, right? Through all of his wisdom, all the things he's gained, he writes this book. But I don't believe that Solomon wrote the first 11 verses, nor do I believe he wrote the last, 7 verses? Yes, 7 verses. I had to count. I don't believe he wrote those because I believe, and we'll see in the upcoming weeks, that you look at in the middle, Solomon looks at life, and this idea that the frame narrator is taking these first few words here and kind of giving you a prequel of what's going to come that we're looking at this week, of what's going to come. And at the end, it's like now that everything has been heard from this person, this is what we need to know. And I think the reality is in the middle of it, this king in Jerusalem, he comes to a conclusion that life is nothing but futile. Life has no meaning. I believe Solomon ended his life in writing this believing that nothing was worth it. Now, you can take that for what it is. You can disagree with me. Totally fine. There are a lot of people that do. But as I walk through these words, I think this is important. And why I say that is, as we get into the middle of this is not going to be the most exciting, the most, hope-filled book. I just want you to understand that. This is not a book of hope. This is a book of reality. It's a book that's somber and it's going to be raw in a lot of places. It's going to make you a bit uncomfortable, but I think it's absolutely necessary to understand it. And so what we're going to look at today, I'm going to look at 3 things that the frame narrator shows us that life is like. 3 different ways in which this life is futility. And it's this, 3 things: that life is short, life is elusive, and life is repetitive. Life is short, life is elusive, and life is repetitive. Look with me in verse 2 again. Futile, futile, laments the teacher. Absolutely futile. Everything is futile. First thing is this, is that life is short. We just saw it. Not only is it a vapor, but it's the what? A vapor of vapors. In other words, it's not just a vapor that's going to come and last. It's the thinnest of vapors. Right? It's here and it's gone. Older crowd, and as I've seen this even in my kids, what do we all lament over and over as our kids get older, as we get older, is what? The days do what? They get shorter and shorter, do they not? They go by faster and faster. The kids are growing up faster and faster. When we're young, it seems like the days last forever. The older we get, man, they're just rushing by, and we wish that they just slow down, right? Proverbs 31:30 says, it's a famous one, right? Charm is deceitful, and beauty is hevel. It's not the idea of vanity of like, oh, you look good, and like you get vain. It's the idea that charm is deceitful, beauty is hevel, is quickly gone. It's like Joan Collins once said, beauty is like being born rich and slowly becoming poor. Right? Let that one sink for a second. I think it's kind of true. Life is short. It's futile because it's short. Second, life is elusive. Not only can we not grasp at it, right? We can't grasp at life, but the attempt to do so only makes it disappear all the quicker. Question, you get that steam coming up. If you try to run your hand and grab it real quick, what happens to that steam? Does it stick around longer? No, it goes away quicker, right? We have no control over what life brings. We think we do. We think we've got it all figured out, right? We know how it all works, but we can't answer why it only seems to rain when what? When I forget my umbrella, right? Or like my wife, it drives her crazy why it is that the line in the supermarket over there is moving so much faster. This one's not moving. And what does her husband do every time? Makes his way over there. And now that one goes like every single time, right? Cannot control it. Why is it that we feel low sometimes and we can't even explain why, right? Why is it that people we know and we love and we say are good people die young of cancer, while the evil dictator sits there and lives forever, it seems, with no repercussions? When we consider our lives, we put everything into it, right? But there's no guarantee you get what you want or you won't lose it all, right? You never know what's going to happen. You never know when that thing you invested in and everything crashes down. You never know when you're about to buy that house and all of the rates go sky high and no longer is it possible, right? No, we don't even know what tomorrow might bring. Like Psalm 104 says, a famous psalm, it says this, Psalm 104 reads this way, verses 15 and 16. He says to us, if I can get there, he says, 15, 16. As well as wine that makes people glad, and oil to make their faces shine, as well as bread that sustains them. Oh, that's not right. What is this? Hold on. That's not the right, I got the wrong reference, but I'm going to read it up there. A person's life is like grass, like a flower in the field, it flourishes. But when the hot wind blows, it disappears, and one can no longer even spot the place where it once grew. Come look at my lawn right now. I haven't been watering it, and this is true. We know what's true about life, that it will not last, yet what do? We live in our pretend worlds that we are in control, that we're going to live forever, like someone else is going to fail, not me, and we're going to make such a difference, such a lasting significance in the world. And then we wonder why we have a midlife crisis, right, when things aren't turning out the way, or we don't really account to a whole lot. Ecclesiastes 1:3 says to us the truth of what benefit do people get from all the effort which they expend on the earth. I think this verse asks the question that verses 4 through 11 will paint a very bleak answer to. What does it matter? Working your fingers to the bone, what does it get us? And I think this book is a meditation on what it looks like to live in a world God made and called good, yet has gone so very wrong. And the narrator here wants us to look at a life and ask how we make sense of it. And I think his implied answer to what can we profit from it, from all that work, is nothing. In the end, what do? For every one of us, in the end, what do we leave it? We leave it all behind, right? Why? Because here's the reality in the third thing in verses 4 through 11, that life is repetitive. It's all futile because it's short, it's elusive, I can't grab it, and it's extremely repetitive. Generations come and go. The sun rises and sets only to do it again, right? The wind comes and it goes, only to come back from the same direction it came. The water cycle just never ceases, right? The ocean keeps filling, but it's never satisfied. It never fills up. There is no satisfaction in the world. And maybe the most famous of verses in Ecclesiastes, verse 9, he says, what exists now is what will be. And what has been done is what will be done. It's already done long ago, right? Oh, sorry, there is nothing truly new on this earth. And some versions say there is nothing truly new, what? Under the sun. We pretend and we think we'll do something that's going to break the cycle. Every one of us think we're going to break that cycle in life, right? We're going to be the one that finally does it. But we can't. The world doesn't work that way. Remember verse 3? There's nothing to gain from our profit, from all of our toils. You gain nothing from hard work. And I think the harshest reality comes in verse 11. No one remembers the former events, nor will anyone remember the events that are yet to happen. They will not be remembered by future generations. In other words, he wants us to know that what? No one will what? Remember you. No one will remember your children. You want to tell? You would think that's true? Let me test. How many of you have 8 great-grandparents, right? Everybody has 8 great-grandparents. We're talking no marriages and all that. If you have 8 great-grandparents, how many of them can you name? I mean, you don't have to answer. You can think for a second. How many of them can you name? Your great-grandparents. I can name 3. That's it, out of 8. How many of your great-great-grandparents can you name? Mine's 0. You are going to die. And the world will move on without you. Welcome to Grace. Any new people? Glad you're here. Let's not pretend that the world works any differently than that. The world is going to move on without you. That's how it works. So what do? 2 ideas of this, I think, is that we need to prepare to die. And second, we prepare to live. We prepare to die, and we prepare to live. And I think the first is this: we prepare to die. Why is there nothing to gain from all of our work? Why? Why do we gain nothing from all of our work? All the things we put in, all the time, all the effort, all the things that we're building for something. Why does it not work? Because what? We will die and be forgotten. The cruelty of life is it will come to naught. And I'm saying this is not, and some people say that they think Ecclesiastes is just a book written by the nihilist or the postmodernist in a sense, the person that says, well, I mean, the person without God, that's what's true, right? The world is only going to do that for somebody. No. It's really for everybody. But I'm a Christian. This certainly can't be true, right? Or, you know, the times are so much worse now than they used to be. So Christ is going to return before my death, certainly. Because what do we like to do? We're not afraid, or we're not looking a lot of times for Christ to come. We're looking for Christ to come so we don't have to what? Die. Because we all fear death, the thing that is the equalizer of all mankind. I think it's true that Christianity gives us a better angle to view everything, the right angle, by the way, but it does not change reality. It is this way for everyone. As long as this world is, nothing will change. You will die and you will be forgotten. And if you don't like how I say it, listen to how Mr. William Shakespeare likes to tell us. I love this. This is my favorite quote in all of Shakespeare. From Macbeth, where he says, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. You want sober reality? Go read some Shakespeare sometime. This is what life on earth is. It's a cruel reality, but it is reality. And being a Christian does not stop this from being true. Rather, I think it should make us as Christians be all the more, make us the first ones to stop pretending as though it's not true. And he hasn't fully laid it out here yet. But he's laying the foundations here for what the rest of the book is. And it's this, that I believe that only by preparing to die preparing to die will teach us how we are to live. Preparing to die will teach us how we are to live. So how are we to live? I think the question is if we're not going to live any long enough to make any difference, if nothing we do is going to make any difference, in the meantime, how then shall we live? I think it takes the whole book to answer this. But accepting death, I believe, is the first step into living and learning to live. I think wise people understand they're going to die. The wise person understands that. But what do we like to do? We like to play pretend, though none of it's true. Pretend that if I just get that promotion, or my church grows, or I raise good children, they're going to go off and do something that's going to signify a lasting legacy that I've left to this earth, right? Or maybe if I just change jobs, I'll escape from the tedium and the ordinariness of life, the thought of do what you love, right? And you'll never work a day in your life. I hear that all the time. I love what I do. Love it. But I can tell you, there's some days it's work. Or maybe if I just get that new house, right? I won't ever have to move again. I'll be happy with that new house that I built and moved into. Never have to move again. Or if I just pay off my debts early, I make Dave Ramsey so proud of me. Man, we've accomplished something, right? Or if I end one relationship and I start a new one, I'll no longer feel trapped anymore. Or if only I just get married. Or if I just maybe stop being married to that person, then I'll be content. Maybe if I just change my appearance, the way I present myself to the world, if I look a certain way, then I'll finally be happy. Or if I could only be an influencer, right? Online, I could be an influencer. Then finally, everybody's going to listen to me, and the world's going to fully change, right? I have all the words to say. I can do it. Or maybe it's just as simple as maybe I can just get past the tedium of diapers and laundry and cleaning, and next week will be so much quieter and easier, right? What do we all believe? That time is on our side. And it's there, and it's going to make us all we want to be. But I think what we do with that is we try to make permanent what's constantly changing. And it's like trying to grasp after the wind. Because here's the thing, I think, and I'm guilty of this. We all want to live for novelty, do we not? We want something new, something fresh, something that's not going to be the same as it was yesterday. If only the new thing will come, and then everything is going to be figured out for me. And we're always thinking about that. We want to avoid repetition at all costs. But we need to stop playing pretend and let history and the world be our teacher. And when you think at last you've made a decisive change in your circumstances, you'll soon want to change something else. And whatever you think you've gained, it will soon vanish from the earth like a mist. And soon you will too. Part of learning to live, I believe, is accepting this reality. One day you'll be dead and gone, and the world will spin on without you. It won't remember you, and in 100 years, it won't even know that you even existed. It's truth. If this depresses you, keep coming. Keep reading the rest of the book. There's still a lot to learn. But if you're sitting here and it causes you, this reality causes you to make that little sly smile on your face, I think you're one step closer to living a life of happiness. The teacher's going to show us what we should and shouldn't expect from life. And he's not just saying that there is no gain after we've grasped for the wind. What we'll learn is there's no need to grasp in the first place. There is no gain to be had under the sun, and that is the point. No need be sought. I'm going to let us sit in that for a week. Let's pray.